There will be spoilers in this video, so make sure you've seen Unbreakable, Split, and Glass before watching. If you want to hear my theory about the meaning behind the Clover tattoos, then stick around to the end of this video. Glass begins with 4 cheerleaders being abducted by Hedwig and David Dunn, who is starting to become known as the Overseer, shifting his focus from petty criminals to the Horde. We first see him take out these kids who are filming themselves Superman punching a random guy in the street to try to go viral. These low criminals are pretending to be superheroes online, which provides a stark contrast with the ending of Glass, where real superheroes leak on social media. David now has his own security company, Dunn Home Security. Elijah says in Unbreakable that David works in security for a reason because he's a born protector, so it makes sense that he gets his own company.
You could have been a tax accountant, you could have owned your own gym, you could have opened a chain of restaurants, you could have done one of 10,000 things, but in the end, you chose to protect people. You made that decision, and I find that very, very interesting.
The next day at work, M Night Shyamalan, the director of the trilogy, makes his cameo appearance, and it answers one of the questions I had going into the movie. He mentions that he's getting more cameras because one of his tenants was killed off-site. He's talking about Dr. Fletcher. So it seems that Jay from Split wasn't just an IT guy helping Dr. Fletcher review security footage, but actually her landlord. And probably also her landlord.
You can't use your thumbs to spin the wheel, dumb.
Jay goes on to see David, and he recognizes him as the security guard from all those years ago, and tells him that he used to hang out with the shady types at the stadium, but he turned his life around. This confirms that stadium drug dealer and Jay are in fact the same character. But this is more than just a fun little director's cameo. It shows the effect that David had cleaning up crime around his city. He actually had a positive impact on the community and helped turn shady people into functioning members of society. David goes out again to look for the Horde, with Joseph giving him tips via headphones and GPS tracker. Not only is this a common superhero trope, but it's also a concept that Shyamalan used in his 2013 film After Earth, although in that movie the roles were reversed and it was the father giving advice to his son. After David bumps into Hedwig on the street, he heads towards the brick factory to look for the girls, and the word allies is written in graffiti on a window in the background, foreshadowing the teaming up of Elijah and the Horde.
That sounds like the bad guys teaming up.
In the Unbreakable Things You Missed, I discussed how upside-down camera composition was used to foreshadow bad things happening, and the trend seems to continue in Glass. When David has the confrontation with the Beast, we see the Beast's point of view as he crawls along the ceiling towards David and the rescued cheerleaders. Like many supervillains, the Beast has a signature move, which is fittingly a giant bear hug. This is the same attack he used on Dr. Fletcher during Split, on David during the factory fight, and the Orderly when him and Mr. Glass are escaping. Throughout the series, broken glass is used as a metaphor of the well-being of the characters. So when David and the Beast battle sends them out the factory through a shattering glass window, it spells the beginning of the end for them because it leads to their capture and placement in Ravenhill Memorial. Once we arrive at that institution, there's a huge clue about the final twist of the movie. As they're placed in their rooms, we are shown the point of view of the cameras placed around the institution. The entire movie, these security camera shots are constantly being shown. The final twist is dangled in front of us all along. The characters are introduced to their new psychiatrist, Dr. Ellie Staple. At the end of the movie, we find out that Dr. Staple is part of an ancient organization created to suppress superheroes from the public. When that happens, she tells Mr. Glass that they don't take sides, she's not good or evil, she essentially falls in the middle. In a literal comic book, there are staples placed in the middle crease to hold everything together. Her name represents her neutrality. Casey gets word of the Beast capture when she's pulled aside at school, and we also see that she attended the same school as Joseph Dunn. I'm not entirely sure what the point of that was outside of furthering the idea that everything is connected in a comic book story, much like how David and Clarence W. Crumb were on the same train. Which, as a quick side note, Clarence's name continues the theme of alliteration in the first 2 movies, with characters like David Dunn, Casey Cooke, Kevin Crumb, and now Clarence Crumb. There's also a character I noticed in the IMDb credits called Scarlet Shields. I honestly have no idea who that even is. I'm assuming she's a minor character, but basically every other minor character has a name like Hospital Patient or Cheerleading Girl Number 4. I honestly have no idea who this is supposed to be. Maybe she was just given a name to throw people off trying to look up information online before the movie came out. Or maybe she's given a name because she has an actual name tag somewhere in the movie. Let me know your findings in the comments. David's son Joseph meets with Dr. Staple to try to convince her to let David go free. When he is unsuccessful, the camera tilts down to an upside-down position again, to watch Joseph leave the facility. Just as Joseph saw the original train crash footage upside down on the couch in Unbreakable, this camera movement in Glass also represents impending disaster. And speaking of Unbreakable, when I saw the scene of David coming into a young Joseph's room, I was completely blown away by it, because I somehow had no idea that these deleted scenes from the first film existed. And this one works really well considering the themes of Glass. Let's roll it.
I'm not scared.
That's great.
You know why? I know now.
Know what?
Your secret identity.
So Joseph felt uneasy about the fact that his father has these incredible abilities that can't be explained, but finds comfort in knowing that he has someone to protect him. This helps explain why it was so important for Mr. Glass to outsmart the Black Clover Society and broadcast the existence of superheroes out to the world. Next, Casey is given the opportunity to meet with the Horde and discovers that her touch can bring Kevin forward into the light. My theory as to why Casey has this ability relates to the fact that the additional identities were created by Kevin's brain as a coping mechanism for the abuse dished out by his mother. It's stated in Split that the Horde exists to protect Kevin.
Are you in charge?
Yeah, we've taken charge. We're the only ones that can protect Kevin.
We're all here to protect Kevin.
He's very weak.
So naturally, the way to bring down these protections is with love and kindness. Casey is the only one who's capable of this because she too has been abused by her uncle, so she knows what kind of gentle hand is needed to undo the damage. When Casey leaves the institution after that, she puts on the jacket given to her by the man working at the Philadelphia Zoo, who helps escort her out of danger at the end of Split. My guess is that she still wears that jacket as a reminder of how she stood up to the Beast, something that also gave her the strength to stand up to her uncle and just be a stronger, braver person overall. In the final examination scene, Dr. Staple tries to convince Mr. Glass, the Horde, and the Overseer that they don't actually have superpowers by giving rational explanations for everything that's happened and telling them that they'll remain institutionalized for the rest of their lives if they're unable to overcome their disorder. In a way, she's actually telling the truth, although we don't know it yet. The Black Clover Society was actually planning to kill them if Dr. Staple didn't successfully convince them that they're ordinary in a 3-day time span. But I'll get back to the Black Clover Society later in this video. Dr. Staple tells David that he has the symptoms of the supposed superhero disorder, but lacks some kind of anchoring incident that made him realize that he was a superhero, which is funny because the anchoring incident he thinks of is literally him drowning like an anchor. One of the main talking points that Dr. Staple uses to try to convince them that they're ordinary is that if superheroes do exist, then why would there only be the 3 of them? This is Dr. Staple counting on the fact that her Black Clover Society will always be successful in suppressing any supers from the public eye. David and Patricia appear to have their faith in their own powers shaken. Elijah doesn't respond because he's pretending to be a vegetable, but he knows that Dr. Staple is lying to them. All the talk of comic books sends Casey to the comic book store to do some of her own research, and the store is owned by none other than the comic book store clerk from Unbreakable. It seems that his suspicions of pervs in the back of the store hasn't changed either, when he yells out to Joseph, "You better not be one of those Hello Kitty pervs."
You better not be jacking off to the Japanese comics, I swear to God.
Just as the mirror reflection shots are used to introduce villains in Unbreakable and Split, similar shots are used in Glass to show that something is not right. David sits on the floor of his cell and his reflection is distorted by the curved wall. Across the way, the Horde is seen in a distorted reflection through a curved mirror. It is shortly after this that we discover Elijah was faking his sedation, and he has the ability to sneak out of his room, where he discovers the magazine advertising the opening of Osaka Tower. Just as the previous movies had subtle references to the Fantastic Four and Teen Titans, the headline of this article calls Osaka Tower a true marvel. Elijah tells the Beast that his plan is to attack the tower on its opening date, December 7th, which is Pearl Harbor Day, another major American disaster. More importantly, that's also my birthday, so put that down in your calendar right now. Right now. Then we get a glimpse into Elijah's past when he sneaks onto a carnival ride and tries to protect himself using stuffed animals. But again, it works really well here because the Beast ends up protecting him from the orderlies and the police as they break out of the hospital. So it's kind of as if he's been protected by animals every step of the way. It's also interesting to note that his plan on the carnival ride backfires and he ends up breaking his shoulder, just as the Beast turns on him at the end of Glass and breaks his shoulder, an injury he would never overcome. After Elijah discovers the powers of the Beast, he formulates his plan to have the Beast battle David in front of the world. I think it's important to note that it was never Mr. Glass's real intention to go to the tower. All he really needed to do was convince the Beast to break them out so he could stream it using the cameras.
Can we copy a strike?
Mr. Glass.
Latest video?
And for anyone who felt that David Dunn's part in all of this was a little underwhelming, let's not forget that it was most likely Dunn's security company who provided all the cameras to the institution in the first place. Part of Elijah's plan was to change out the lens of the machine that he used for his surgery, then get himself caught lollygagging around on camera so that the doctor moves up the date of his operation. This is important because it allows the orderly, Daryl, to let his guard down around Elijah, giving him the opportunity to slit his throat with the broken shard of glass. And just as Elijah's broken glass cane represented his injuries in Unbreakable, the broken picture frames foreshadow his eventual demise in glass. All three characters have their broken glass moment. At the end of the second act, there are a couple more clever uses of shots that use mirror reflections to tell us something. The first is Dr. Staple getting out of her car and heading into Ravenhill Memorial, which we see through her side mirror. These mirrors always come with a disclaimer. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. Well, Dr. Staple is not just a psychiatrist as she appears to be, but she's actually part of this secret organization. Our earlier mirror shots of David and the Horde are distorted by curved mirrors, but when Elijah finally meets the Beast, he first sees the transformation through the reflection of a glass cabinet. And there's no distortion here, which tells us that things are going to be essentially as they should be, with the impending clash of good versus evil. Then Dr. Staple realizes that Elijah has broken out, and she sees the news report on TV about the opening of Osaka Tower, and thinks Mr. Glass is going to sabotage it. Also, the reporter is the same guy who reports on the missing girls in Split, and on the news ticker at the bottom, there's a report about cryptocurrency. Krypton is the name of Superman's home planet, and Superman is referenced several times throughout Glass. Shortly after, the final battle begins, and Dr. Staple curiously tells someone to make sure to keep patients and staff away from the south side windows. This is because she knows that David, Elijah, and Kevin's powers are real, and it's her duty to make sure nobody finds out about them. So that brings us back to this whole Black Clover society. Who are they? Where did they come from? Why do they have these matching tattoos? And what do they have to do with Split and Unbreakable? All of the answers to these questions are coming up. At the end of the confrontation, a mysterious group of SWAT members, all sharing a wrist tattoo of a black 3-leaf clover, shows up to kill David and the Beast. Dr. Staple is revealed to be part of the society. She explains that they're a group that's been around for 10,000 years to keep superheroes out of the public eye because it's not fair to the rest of society to have gods walking among us. Dr. Staple's mission the entire time was to get them to believe that their powers weren't real, so they can go on living ordinary lives. She was given 3 days to do so, but if she failed, the alternative was some kind of brain surgery or death. In Split, we are shown how the organization's manipulation of society has worked. Society sees the Horde's dissociative identity disorder as a problem, a mental illness that needs to be cured. Dr. Fletcher's thesis to the medical community is that maybe those with those conditions are actually extraordinarily gifted.
Well, we look at people who've been shattered and different as less than. What if they're more than us?
But Dr. Fletcher is largely rejected by her peers, and it's because of the Black Clover Society that's been working for 10,000 years to condition us to see this as a mental illness. That's exactly what Dr. Staple does in Glass. She rounds up 3 of the most extraordinary supers in Philadelphia and tries to convince them that something is wrong with them and that they need treatment. That's why she wants Casey to get Kevin to hold onto the light, because she is aware of the power that someone with DID is capable of. The existence of this group also explains a question brought up way back when Elijah and David have their first meeting in Unbreakable.
I believe comics are our last link to an ancient way of passing on history. The Egyptians drew on walls. Countries all over the world still pass on knowledge through pictorial forms.
Remember when Dr. Staple is meeting with Joseph, Casey, and Elijah's mother and tries to convince them that comics are nothing more than fantasy? She even brings up comic book conventions to try to invalidate them. The only time she gets frustrated is when they try to link their situation to what they've seen in comic books. The Clover Society is there to ensure that these stories exist through pictures as seemingly fictional stories, but nothing more.
I believe comics are a form of history that someone somewhere felt or experienced. Then, of course, those experiences and that history got chewed up in the commercial machine, got jazzed up, made titillating cartoon for the sale rack.
In Glass, the someone somewhere is Elijah referring to his mother, Joseph, and Casey. Only this time, instead of distributing comics to be chewed up in the commercial machine, they have actual video evidence of the existence of these powers. Dr. Staple also mentions that when one super appears, another is likely to appear opposite of him, and it just leads to conflict, which is why she feels that the Clover Society needs to appear to pacify them.
If there is someone like me in the world, and I am at one end of the spectrum, couldn't there be someone else, the opposite of me at the other end? Someone who doesn't get sick, who doesn't get hurt like the rest of us. And he probably doesn't even know it.
Okay, but why the Black Clover tattoos? That seems kind of random. Well, maybe not. We can look at it from the secret organization's perspective and from a filmmaking perspective. First, from a filmmaking perspective. The fact that David, Elijah, and the Horde's journey as superpowered humans ends with the tattoo of these clovers kind of brings the trilogy full circle. Let's go way back to when we're introduced to David in Unbreakable. A woman appears asking him if he's alone, and she takes the spot next to him on the train. He notices a tattoo on her abdomen, which appears to be a rose, but we only see the bottom of the stem because this is the very root of David's story. When we see the Secret Society's Clover tattoos at the very end of David's story, we're seeing the top of the plant, so it's almost as if we've come all the way around. But then, why not use a rose tattoo for the society as well? The Clover does a better job of representing their values. They essentially want to purge the world of anyone who has these rare special powers. A four-leaf clover is considered a rare and lucky find, much like how a superhero is a rare, incredible standout in our society. But the Black Clover people don't want that. They want everyone to be a three-leaf clover, and that's why it was chosen as the symbol of their organization. Finally, there was one other minute detail that I felt really brought the series to a nice conclusion. Mr. Glass famously gets his supervillain name from the kids that made fun of his condition, osteogenesis imperfecta.
They called me Mr. Glass.
Elijah's mother lives across from a playground. We see this in a flashback during Unbreakable. At the end of Glass, before the email comes from Elijah containing the footage of the final battle, you can hear the sounds of children playing outside. How fitting that the very playground that the kids poked fun of Elijah at, part of what put the villain idea in his head in the first place, gave him his awakening as a supervillain, can be heard again just before Elijah's mother puts out that video to help all the heroes and villains across the world have their realization and awakening. When David first accepts his newfound powers in Unbreakable, Elijah tells him to go where there are people, and he goes to the train station. That's exactly what Mrs. Price, Joseph, and Casey do when they unveil the existence of these comic book heroes to the world. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out my Things You Missed episodes on Unbreakable and Split as well. And make sure you subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week. Ring that death bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive.